Hi, everybody, and welcome to the DRF Breeding Report. I'm Dan Illman, always pleased to be talking pedigrees with Nicole Russo. The Belmont Stakes, the third jewel in racing's Triple Crown, is this Saturday. Let's dive into the pedigrees on some of the major contenders, especially some of the new shooters. And Nicole, let's begin with Epicharis, who's a nose away from being undefeated from 5 starts going into the Belmont. We'll take a look at his tough beat in the UAE Derby last time out, but this is a fascinating entrant.
Yeah, and Epicharis especially fascinating because he really might relish this extreme route of ground on dirt. His sire Gold Allure, who died earlier this year, was one of the many good sons at stud by Sunday Silence, the 1989 Horse of the Year, who went on to become a breed-shaping sire in Japan. Gold Allure posted 4 Group 1 victories in Japan, including 3 as a 3-year-old going 1.25 miles. His best runners, such as Capano Ricky, S4 City, Chrysolite, Gold Dream, have all gone routes of ground on dirt. And Epicharis, under his female side, is also a half-brother to a Group 3 winner at 1.25 miles on turf. So just a lot of distance route of ground ability in this family.
And he certainly seems like a true grinding type. Always thought highly of. This is a horse that sold for about $250,000 as a weanling. You mentioned Gold Allure, you mentioned Sunday Silence, you mentioned the half-sibling, the multiple graded stakes winner on turf at 1.25 miles. All things seem to be adding up that Epicharis, despite not having raced since late March in the UAE Derby, seems like he might be very well equipped from a pedigree standpoint to last the demanding 1.5 miles. Hollywood Handsome is coming into this year's Belmont off an entry-level allowance win at Churchill Downs. This one's by Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner Tapizar.
Yeah, and if you're going to look for something in Hollywood Handsome's favor, Tapizar is one of the better sons at stud, I think, by multiple leading North American sire Tapit, who has 2 Belmont winners to his own credit, and it's the AP Indy sire line. So I think, those are certainly points in Hollywood Handsome's favor. However, Tapizar, as you mentioned, Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner. Hollywood Handsome's dam did not win beyond 1 mile. His half-siblings' only wins have come at 4.5 furlongs. I really sort of think this is more of a middle-distance family.
I tend to agree. Tapizar stands at Gainesway for a $15,000 stud fee. He sold Hollywood Handsome for $200,000 as a yearling. Folks holding out hope for perhaps some stamina in the pedigree will look and see that Hollywood Handsome's dam's a half-sister to Oxam, who was grade 3 placed on turf going 1.5 miles. The dam's a full sister to a grade 2 placed runner named Lady Lumberjack, but that was at 1.16 miles over a synthetic surface. Let's talk about Meantime, a horse that should inject some speed into the proceedings. We're going to take a look at Meantime's graded stakes debut, the Peter Pan, where he was on the lead. He drifted well off the rail turning into the stretch, and he then threw it down for a while before odds-on favorite Timeline took his measure late.
Yeah, Meantime, from the first crop of Shackelford, who's looking to make a statement here in the Belmont, in a year where first crop stallions have really dominated the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown, Shackelford scored some of his most impressive wins at shorter distances, taking Met Mile by a nose over Caleb's Posse, and really a terrific field, winning the grade 2 Churchill Downs at 7 furlongs over champion sprinter Amazambi. He was also tough and durable enough to carry his feet around 2 turns, winning the 2011 Preakness, winning the Clark Handicap to end his career. But really, Shackelford, I think, sort of broke the mold there. He was just a phenomenal racehorse who was gritty and durable enough to take his speed a bit longer. And I'm waiting to see if his offspring are going to follow in those footsteps.
He stands at Derby Dan Farm, does Shackelford, for a $15,000 stud fee, also represented this year by 3-year-old graded stakes winner Malegacy. We look at the bottom of this pedigree, and this dam, Livermore Leslie, has been extremely productive, but her foals have done their best running at sprints and middle distances.
Yeah, she's a dam of multiple grade 1 winner Sweet Reason, who took the Acorn at 1 mile and the Test at 7 furlongs. Don't forget Gil won the Florida Oaks at 1 1/16. She did stretch out to finish second by just a neck in the Coaching Club American Oaks at 1.25 miles. Another half-sibling was a minor stakes winner at 1 mile. But yeah, really sort of a middle distance and sprint type family, although a very classy family.
Chad Brown's Cloud Computing, the Preakness winner, will not be participating in the Belmont, but Chad will be represented by a New York-bred gelding named Twisted Tom. We're going to take a look back at Twisted Tom's win in the Federico Tessio Stakes at 9 furlongs over a sloppy track at Laurel. This horse is a little bit slow from the Beyer speed figure standpoint, but it's hard to discount anything Chad Brown puts out on the racetrack.
Yeah, and another first crop sire here in a Creative Cause, a son of Giants Causeway, who was a Grade 1 winner, and then third in the Preakness Stakes as a 3-year-old. I've got really high hopes for Creative Cause as a sire with his first foals. He got a terrific book in his first season that sort of indicated he was well received, looking, to be a good stud for Giants Causeway. His foals haven't really run many good long-distance stakes performances yet.
The sire stands, Creative Cause, $15,000 fee at Airdrie. Twisted Tom was twice a $22,000 buyback as a yearling, but he was purchased privately by Cobra Farm after winning his second lifetime start on turf. And when you look at the bottom of this pedigree, there is a lot of turf influence.
Yeah, there really is. Tiffany Twisted won her maiden at 1 3/8 miles on turf, so there's some distance ability. She won an allowance race at 1 1/4 miles on a wet, fast track, the sort of track that sometimes plays to turf horses. She's by Derby and Belmont Stakes winner Thunder Gulch.
The third dam won the Coaching Club American Oak, so there's a little bit of pedigree here. And stamina, Twisted Tom, really appreciating the stretching out to 2 turns on dirt. 3 for 3 around 2 turns on dirt. Let's talk about Classic Empire. He's going to be the favorite in this race. He is the marquee name in this year's Belmont. A troubled trip in the Kentucky Derby, ran so well in the Preakness. How does his pedigree stack up with some of these others as it pertains to 1.5 miles?
Well, I think you certainly have to take a look at him because of his sire, Pioneer of the Nile, who's been a stamina sort of influence. Of course, Pioneer of the Nile had a Belmont Stakes and Triple Crown winner 2 years ago in American Pharoah, so certainly Pioneer of the Nile can get a 1.5 mile horse. Pioneer of the Nile's from the Unbridled line, which is responsible for Belmont winners like Empire Maker, Birdstone, Summerbird. So a lot of stamina up there. There's a lot of, as we've discussed throughout the spring, there's a lot of class on the bottom side of Classic Empire's family. He's already sort of outrun the distance limitations suggested there, as he's a half-brother to 2 stakes winning sprinters, but I think that Unbridled line through Pioneer of the Nile on top stands him in a good place entering the Belmont here.
And you mentioned that we've discussed Classic Empire. We've discussed many of the main contenders for the Belmont Stakes, horses that have already competed in the Derby and the Preakness. We've discussed their bloodlines at length. You can find those analyses on the DRF Breeding Report archives on video.drf.com. Now let's look at 2 horses that you really think are well equipped to handle this distance. Let's begin with Irish War Cry, winner of the Wood Memorial. We're going to take a look at his Wood Memorial win right now. This horse, when he showed up in the Kentucky Derby, he was traveling so sweetly on the far turn and into the stretch that it looked like he was going to be a major factor, and then for whatever reason, he didn't fire late.
Yeah, for whatever reason, which sort of baffled me because he really was looking well, and I really think he's the sort of horse that wants to go a route of ground like this. If you look at his sire, 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, was a force at classic distances throughout his career. He himself ran so well in the 2007 Belmont when he was out-dueled by the champion filly Rags to Riches in a terrific stretch battle. And Curlin, in keeping with his ability to run long, has thrown a classic winner or classic place runner from each of his first 4 crops. Irish War Cries from his 5th crop. And that includes some horses who have really had an impact on the Belmont. In 2013, Belmont winner Palace Malice, Keen Ice, who ran 3rd 2 years ago behind American Pharoah. So I really think that Curlin on top there just means that you can't throw out Irish War Cry in this spot.
Another stoutly bred horse that might rebound from a somewhat disappointing Kentucky Derby is Santa Anita Derby winner Gormley. And we're going to take a look at his stretch kick in the Santa Anita Derby. This is just a very likable, solid, consistent horse, certainly in the right hands, trained by John Sheriffs.
Yeah, and Gormley's one of the horses where when we started looking at the pedigrees of the Triple Crown horses early on, you sort of looked at him and went like, man, this isn't going to be a problem for him. He's by Malibu Moon, as we talked about, that stamina source AP Indy sire line. And on the female side, Gormley's pedigree is just so deep. It's the family of Astropod, Miss Mambo, Criminal Type, an Italian Group 1 winner in Isopac, just a lot of long-winded type horses. So Gormley, a lot of criticism with him, as with others, has centered around kind of his lower buyer speed figures, his less than fast races. But really, the Belmont, a mile and a half, it's a grind, and Gormley's the sort of horse who might chalk up a placing here.
So of the new shooters, Epicharis, the Japanese invader, might be the horse able to get this mile and a half from a pedigree standpoint. And two horses from the Derby, Irish War Cry and Gormley, certainly have that stamina in their pedigrees. Nicole, great stuff as always. We'll be back next week on the DRF Breeding Report to recap the Belmont Stakes.